There's a guy who always has the new watch, the clean car, the expensive dinner photo, the shoes that look like they were bought for the photo before they were bought for the feet. And somehow, every month, he's still one emergency away from panic. One flat tire, one slow week at work, one bill he forgot was coming, and the whole thing starts shaking. Most people look at him and say, he's showing off. And sometimes, sure, he is. But not always. Sometimes what you're actually seeing is fear wearing a nice shirt. I'm Hank, and I've known a few people like this. Hell, in small ways, I've been closer to this than I'd like to admit. I was never much good at looking flashy, but I know what it feels like to want a room to read you differently, to want people to see the version of you that made it out, not the version that had to count every dollar twice. That's the part nobody talks about. Some people don't buy luxury because they feel rich. They buy it because they're terrified people will notice they're not. So today, we're getting into the psychology of people who pretend to be rich. Not to laugh at them, not to call them stupid, and not to do that cheap thing where we point at somebody's car payment and act like we're smarter. The better question is why a person would spend money they don't really have to create an image they can't really afford. Because the purchase happens in the store, but the shame started years before that. The first thing to understand is this. He is not always buying the thing. He is buying the reaction. A watch is not just a watch when a man feels invisible. A car is not just a car when he grew up watching people treat his family like they were less than. A table at the expensive restaurant is not just dinner when he spent half his life feeling like he wasn't the kind of person who belonged in that room. Most people see the object, the shoes, the phone, the car, the jacket. What they're actually seeing is a receipt for a feeling, respect. He might say he likes nice things, he works hard, he deserves it, life is short. And maybe some of that is true, but underneath it, there is often something quieter. He wants to be treated like someone who made it. I knew a guy years ago. I'll call him Marcus. Marcus had the kind of car you noticed before you noticed him. Clean, polished, loud enough to make sure nobody missed the entrance. He had it parked outside a small apartment complex, where half the tenants were behind on something. Every time he stepped out of that car, he looked like a man trying to arrive somewhere he hadn't actually reached yet. People thought he was arrogant. Maybe he was. But I remember watching him one day when the car wouldn't start. The whole performance fell off his face. Not anger. Not embarrassment exactly. Fear. Like the car had betrayed him by telling the truth. That's status anxiety. Simple way to think about it. Status anxiety is the fear that other people can see where you really are on the ladder. And for some people, that fear gets expensive. It makes a man buy the jacket before he builds the emergency fund, finance the car before he fixes the account, take the photo before he asks himself if he can actually afford the night. He's not trying to be rich, he's trying not to look poor. And that is a different kind of pressure. The strange part is, he doesn't even enjoy half the things he buys. That's how you know it's not really about pleasure. A person who buys something because they enjoy it relaxes after the purchase. A person who buys something to prove something gets nervous after the purchase. He starts wondering who noticed, who didn't, whether it was enough, whether it looked real, whether someone else has a better version. That's the trap. Status spending doesn't end the insecurity, it feeds it. The watch works for a while, then someone else gets a better one. The car works for a while, then a newer model pulls up beside him. The vacation photo works for a while, then somebody posts from a better place. Real wealth can sit quietly. Fake wealth needs constant updates. That's why pretending to be rich is exhausting. It's not just the money, it's the acting. Then social media came along and made the whole thing worse. Before, if you felt behind, you compared yourself to your block, your cousin, a guy at work, maybe somebody from high school if you ran into him at the grocery store. Now you compare yourself to everyone, every day. Men your age buying houses, men younger than you flying first class, people who apparently never wear the same shirt twice, a guy you knew in 10th grade standing next to a rented sports car in Miami talking about discipline. And even when you know half of it is fake, it still gets in. You still feel behind. You still feel ordinary. You still feel like everyone else got a manual you didn't get. And that feeling is dangerous when a credit card is nearby. Some debt is just life, groceries, car repairs, medical bills, slow months, but some debt is emotional. Some debt is a person saying, I don't want to look like I'm struggling. That's identity-based spending. You're not just buying a product. You're buying evidence for a story about who you are, or who you want people to think you are. The fake rich person is often trying to escape an old label. Broke, poor, basic, nobody, failure. Those words get into people early, sometimes from family, sometimes from school, sometimes from being the kid who couldn't go on the trip, couldn't buy lunch, couldn't wear the right shoes, couldn't invite friends over, because the house was tense and everyone knew money was the reason. A child doesn't understand economics. A child understands embarrassment. And embarrassment has a long memory. So years later, that person gets a little money. Not enough to be free, just enough to build an image. And now every purchase has a hidden sentence behind it. I am not that kid anymore. I am not broke anymore. I am not someone you can ignore anymore. That is why simple financial advice usually misses the point. You can tell a person to stop buying expensive things, and mathematically you might be right. But if that expensive thing is the only proof he has that he escaped who he used to be, he won't hear you. Because to him, you're not asking him to stop spending. You're asking him to go back. And then there's the biggest confusion of all. Attention starts feeling like respect. A man walks into a room with the right car key in his hand and people notice. He posts the dinner and people react. He wears the jacket and somebody says, "You're doing well, huh?" That little sentence can be addictive. For a person who spent years feeling like nobody saw the effort, that sentence hits deep. So he starts chasing it. Not because he's shallow, but because recognition feels like proof. The problem is that attention and respect are not the same thing. Attention is someone looking. Respect is someone understanding. Attention can be bought. Respect has to survive when nothing shiny is in the room. People notice the car. They don't call him when they need wisdom. People compliment the watch. They don't feel safer around him. The image got him watched. It didn't get him known. The debt is not always the real problem. The performance is. It shows up in small places, saying yes to a trip he can't afford, buying drinks for the table because he likes being seen as generous, checking the banking app in the bathroom, keeping the lifestyle because telling the truth would feel like losing status. That kind of life has no rest in it, because every social situation becomes a stage. You're not just living, you're managing the audience. And the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to build real wealth. Because every dollar spent to look safe is a dollar not used to become safe. Here's the part I keep coming back to. He didn't want the watch. Not really. He wanted the room to treat him differently. He wanted the silence that comes when nobody questions whether you belong. He wanted to stop feeling like the poor kid in better clothes. He wanted proof that the years of embarrassment were over. And if you understand that, you stop seeing only arrogance. You start seeing the wound underneath the performance. Fake rich behavior is not always about loving money. Sometimes it is about hating the feeling of being looked down on. Sometimes it is poverty shame with better clothes. Sometimes it is a person trying to buy respect from people who were never going to give him peace anyway. So tell me in the comments, do you know someone who looks successful but never seems peaceful? And be honest, have you ever caught yourself buying something? Not because you wanted it, but because you wanted to be seen a certain way?